time. Okay. Our next speaker is Victoria Sanders, who's also going to share her experience. Thank you very much for coming.
Mr. Chairman and representatives and senators, I'm not quite sure who everyone is here. I want to thank you for this chance to speak, and I want to thank you for listening today. We know sometimes just by listening, it gives people a chance to say there is a problem, and many problems are hidden, and the people who are in pain are never heard. About 5 or 6 years ago, I had the privilege to attend an event at Palo Alto where about 25 people from the Veterans Administration in Washington, D.C. came. The women, it was for women veterans, and the women spoke about everything from MST, things like breast prosthetics that were not given out but every 2 years, but if a woman loses or gains weight, she can't get a new one. And when a woman said, "I hate it when they call me Mr.," the entire room groaned. So having a group together gives you sometimes more feedback than you would get from just one or two people. And that listening could, in my opinion, be used in the context of military mental health days. I think that the military spends some time on recreational days, but the idea that I would like to see happen is for all of the military, but specifically what you could do is the Guard units start having mental health days where you could either have them be evaluated by a test, a person, they could have group time where you just check your rank and your ego at the door and you sit down like adults and you discuss what could be a problem. And sometimes just having that discussion will bring that person out of the dark and will make them go up and say, "Hey, this happened to me." But you have to have the conversation. In sexual assault training, I like that Kate with The Invisible War, and there's another movie, Service When Women Come Marching Home, and there's an older movie than that called Lioness, which is very powerful. And when you have an MST survivor like Kate, or I gave you some papers about a woman named Corey, and I'm going to mess up her name. Choka. She gave a talk at a Guard unit in Ohio, and the commander wrote her a letter, and I included that in the packet that I gave you. It talks about how much having her there humanized this stereotype of the rape victim. They found a young, vibrant, smart, strong woman. The human factor was all too clear at that point. And I know this can't replace the idea of military sexual assault training, but I think it could be a very powerful tool. And Kate has done this in Washington, and I think there's been some other cases around, but I know specifically of those two places. It's a big risk to do something like this, but the path we're on is a big risk. There are survivors and advocacy groups like myself and Kate who would be willing to do this. Once you hear the story of how a military sexual assault victim transfers from that victim role into the PTSD and goes through the VA and all of that, once you hear the whole process, you begin to understand that each step along the way can be a little bit daunting. Now, local services, like Kate said, the Marin Services for Women, I was enrolled there, and the second day I went, they closed. I have looked for places, anyone, to serve me in Marin County. That program served women who were just getting out of jail, had drug problems, and veterans with PTSD. I have tried to find a person in my community to treat me, but as soon as I say MST, PTSD, and veteran, they want me to go to the VA. I have had them say, and this was very insulting, I've had them say, well, I'll give you a sliding scale basis. And I've said, well, I pay for health insurance, I'm insured through the VA, and I have a Medicare supplement plan. Why should I have to pay more? Why should I have to pay more out of my pocket to fix this problem? Why is the state not helping us to find these people, which I know are there, But there is no way for me as a patient to call every single one of these people and ask that question. Mental health is hard enough, but having to deal with trying to vet someone on that kind of a level of calling every name, and I've called every name I've been given so far that's in my county. There are people in San Francisco, but they all want a sliding scale. None of them want to take what the VA will pay. If the state could help by paying some of that cost, that could be helpful to us. Our counties are where we live and where we should be treated, and especially in terms of the Guard and reserves, because sometimes they're stuck there with their predators and they can't get out. It's not just emotional problems that keep you from going to the VA. There are physical limits too. I have spoke to women who sometimes ride a bus 2 and 3 hours one way just to go to an hour of therapy. Riding in a bus full of men is one reason that women do not continue therapy. For me personally, Kate had to drive me over here. I can't drive more than 30 minutes, and literally 30 minutes is the maximum I can do. I live near San Francisco VA, but that's 45 minutes on a good day. I could go to Roanoke Park, again, 45 minutes on a good day. They have a robust program at the Roanoke Park VA. That's, in fact, where I started my journey through the Veterans Administration, was in Roanoke Park. When I spoke to Sean at the Marin in April, they're booked. They need more funds, more staff, and I would guess more space, and an MST specialist. I know of at least, and this is only by cursory looking, 5 people in my community who go to other places, who leave their county to go and seek care, either in San Francisco, Roanoke Park, Santa Rosa. The other problem is we have a lot of missed population, and I think this leads to a lot of the homelessness, especially among the MST survivors. I know of a woman who went to the VA for 10 years with mental health, drug abuse problems. No one ever told her she could be eligible for more. That's not what happened to me. The first appointment I had with a VA person, they made sure I had an appointment for a follow-up with the Veteran Service Officer who could help me figure out whether or not I wanted to make a claim. It's not just a woman's problem. I know that this is a woman's caucus, but I can't forget, I testified in July, before Congress, and it was the first time a male MST survivor had ever testified before a Veteran Affairs Committee, and he was dynamic, and it chokes me up when I think about him, because out of the 26,000 people that we talk about that the DOD gives us, 53% of them are men. And if I had to serve in a Guard unit in those boots, I would find it daunting, even if it was only 2 or 3 times a year. There is a movie called Justice Denied that is all about male survivors. If that movie could be shown and male survivors taken to these units like Kate did and Corey did, that might make those men able to say, I was attacked. They might not have been attacked yet, but once they are attacked, they can say, hey, I saw that movie. The PTSD symptoms can be completely debilitating, and that's what happened to me. I had flashbacks, nightmares, I have emotional numbing, I was detached, I had no interest in normal activities, I had no feeling like there was a future, I was always looking for danger, I was irritable, I had outbursts of anger, and sometimes still do. I have trouble sleeping, I have guilt. A lot of the guilt's been worked through. I had some very good therapy at the Palo Alto VA. But even physical symptoms like anxiety, dizziness, fainting, feeling like your heart is just going to beat out of your chest, headaches, and even fibromyalgia, I found, was a symptom of PTSD. Briefly, my story, When a woman was raped very close to my front door, it caused my trauma to become full-blown PTSD. That was in 2004. I was suddenly transported back to 1975 at Fort Carson, feeling like I was back in the room where I was raped, unable to verbalize my feelings of shock, fear, isolation, and wanting to die. I was stuck there in my home for I don't know how many months, locking and unlocking my 3 doors. It's now 38 years later, and when I think back on that day, I was working in a barracks. It was around noon on a sunny August day. A sergeant from the supply room next door said, "Come here." And I stepped into a busy hall and found myself surrounded by 3 men. I was then backed into a room. A metal door slid shut, and I could hear padlocks being put on the outside of the door. I tried to get away. The sergeant grabbed me. He said, "You're not leaving here until I get what I came for." He pushed me down on a pile of tents and raped me. And when he raped me, he warned me not to tell anyone because no one will believe a private over a sergeant. When he finally let me go, I ran to the door. He told his friend to open it. My boss found me in a state of shock at my desk crying and called the MPs. Before I ever got to the CID, the Criminal Investigation Division, to make a statement, the rapist and his buddies had a story and word got around fast. In the end, my rapist was given an Article 15. He was reduced in rank, lost pay, and was confined to barracks. This is where what we call chain of command harassment started, because the barracks he was confined to was where I worked, and he still worked in the office next to mine. When you report a rape, you become public enemy number 1. You are treated like a criminal by everyone, and no one will talk to you. If they do, it's only to tell you you got what you deserved and ask how you could turn on your buddies. You are called names, and you internalize these things, and you feel like it was your fault. The daily sexual harassment ranged from a "hey baby" to a man hanging his penis out of the window yelling what he would like for me to do. That harassment followed me through 3 transfers. Fortunately, I had an out because at the time I became a single parent, and single parents could be discharged quickly. They let me go, but that day I began the battle of fighting the fight known as post-traumatic stress disorder. When you are raped, it takes a piece of your soul. Being raped by a fellow service member is a double betrayal, but not being backed up by your commanders is the hardest betrayal of all. When you are in the military, you are in a very well-defined power system. You have a boss, that person has a boss, and up the chain. If you have a problem, there is nowhere to turn. The chain of command is all you have. Your command has the power to take away your paycheck or the roof over your head, and by association, your family. Statewide, if we could use the theories of the Military Justice Improvement Act, take the reporting out of the chain of command, make county and city rape crisis centers the point of contacts for those units, work with local resources, like I said before, to find people who can support these members who cannot be transferred away from their predators, giving the victims counsel and support teams to help them with any upcoming legal actions. In general, having state oversight over this problem. We don't have to wait for Washington, D.C. to act in order to fix this problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I can pass the batch around if you guys want to see it.
Ms. Eggman?
I just want to say, as a fellow military veteran, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And on the behalf of this body, we apologize for what happened to you, and we'll do our best to continue to try to make it right for you and for others. Thank you for your work and your service.
Thank you.